Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast, where your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo, helps you break free from obstacles and live life on your terms. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration. Tune in as we dive into captivating conversations with experts and explore topics that will ignite your passion and drive. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Let's dive in.
Welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners out there, the name of my book is titled Is Your Way in Your Way. It's actually a self-discovery guide for women on how to restore yourself, learn from your experiences, and be your true self again. And we actually talk about topics that are related to what I call personal growth, personal development, business growth. And these are individuals who are stuck. You know, like you want to write a book, you should be getting out of this toxic relationship, or you want to be a speaker, you want to have a podcast, you want to adopt a child. It's a number of things, but you just can't seem to get there. So this podcast my hopes is always that it's going to be a blessing to you, that something will be said that will trigger your soul and say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. And perhaps today is the day. And I have a special guest on today, and her name is Marni Battista. Hello, Marni. How are you?
I love that. I love our purposes are so aligned, and I'm just excited to be in your aura here.
Oh, I'm excited for you to be here too. Hey, actually, I told Marni that I'm gonna put her back in the orange room, so I just called her out of the orange room. And her topic, what we're going to talk about today, is living courageously. And before we get into our conversation, I just want to read a little bit about Marni so that you can, I would say, have some background on her and to understand why she is qualified to talk about this topic. Marni is a CEO and founder of the Institute Living Courageously, where she's developed a research-based holistic system empowering ambitious women to break free from self-imposed limitations, embrace authenticity, and live on their own terms. Drawing inspiration from a year she spent traveling the country in an RV and guided by an ancient spiritual questions, Marni's transformative approach blends personal growth principles and meaningful self-assessments. This is going to be good, you guys. Listen, her upcoming book is called The Radical Living Challenge. It's 7 questions for a meaningful life. Offers a universal framework to enrich happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction. And together, her coaching, her writing, even her innovative methodologies help individuals tap into their fundamental nature, designing purposeful living and purposeful lives, and become the architect of their own success. Yes, we are certainly on one accord here, Marni. This is going to be so good. Hey, I'd like to know, I'm fascinated about your RV for a year trip. What was life like before you and your husband and your 2 cats, you all decided to travel for a year? What was life like before you all did that?
Well, it's kind of interesting. On the outside, like I would say, the Instagram version of my life was amazing. Right. I had built a business up over a 10-year period to be successful. I was an industry leader in my coaching niche at the time. I had a big team that was working for me. I had a lovely house, a housekeeper who was also like a house manager. My husband was like doting husband and it all looked great, handsome. My kids were doing well, all looked great. Right. And then, but I was like grinding hard, Cassandra. Like I felt like I was, playing the game of Jenga, that game where you build the thing and you have to pull right. And I felt like if I didn't control every single piece of it, if one person or one thing fell out of line, It would
Yes.
all explode. And it was a lot to like, when you're at the top of that tower and you're like trying to push every single thing without making it fall apart. And I was just sort of on autopilot. And in February 2020, literally 2 weeks before the world went into lockdown, I was skiing in Canada at a resort called Whistler. And I unfortunately followed a friend down a ski run that was probably a little outside my expertise. And I ended up landing flat on my back and breaking 7 bones in my sacrum.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Oh, wow.
that was a near crippling accident, like millimeters away from a very different outcome. In the recovery process of that, I had to basically not move from my bed for about 12 weeks. And I couldn't do anything. And I realized that I'd spent my whole life doing, and if I wasn't doing, then who am I? And my recovery didn't go as smoothly as I wanted it to. I talk a lot about this in the book. I had decided I was going to be the fastest recovery in the, and it just wasn't going my way. And a friend of mine referred me to a person that I had a conversation with. And this person said, you've broken your sacrum, which is the foundation of your physical self, because you need to rebuild the foundation of your life in a new way that is not just based on your neck up, on your head, on productivity, on achieving, on doing, that you need to be an integrated whole person and lead with your heart and your emotions and your soul. And that's why you're here. And I was like,
oh, wow.
And that, so that got me on this road to really reevaluating my life and confronting my fears and the problems that I thought I had.
Yes.
My team wasn't performing well. Sales weren't, I needed to break this one goal. My husband needed to change in this way. Those were really my problems.
All those important things, right?
Right. My problem was that I was terrified, and this speaks to your intro. I was terrified of change. I thought that my life was that Jenga thing. And if anything fell out of place, then I would die. Like I would explode. Who am I?
Right.
And that was the beginning. That was the catalyst for really deciding, like, do I want to sit here in this house looking at pictures of my kids growing up, being stuck in the past, lamenting what the loss of what was, or do I really want to live the rest of my life? And my mom had died at 64. I was 55 when this happened. And I thought, girl, if you have 9 years to live, do you really want to spend it stuck in fear?
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Wow. I love that analogy. That's one of my favorite games. And I loved it when you talked about, it sounded so much like me in control, like it had to be like this. There's no other way. And then from that, I thought things were going smooth, and then all of a sudden, voila, it's kind of like, uh-oh, I'm out of control. What do I do? And you made that decision. And it's unfortunate, but perhaps I say it's fortunate because it takes something like that to happen to someone for them to say, you know what? I can either be bitter about this thing or I can be better. And thank God, Marni, you chose, you know what? And that person that spoke in your life said, oh no, okay, you have more to do. You have more to give. So let's get with it. So it's your decision in other words, you were just sick and tired of how you were. And it sounded like you just surrendered.
I had to surrender. I mean, like, the things that were keeping me stuck. So interestingly, once I started asking different questions rather than why is this happening to me and why did this doctor not fix me and why is this person such a jerk, and going into what might really be underneath this threshold that I'm at where I'm not healing in the way I want. I got access to a lot of information, and the key, which I actually have never talked about on any other show, was that I had a client retreat. It was in Utah. And it was like the first time I was traveling, and I had to bring this special chair, and I had to sit there with my feet on this thing. And I had, it was all very whatever. And I had my clients do this forgiveness exercise. There was like a labyrinth. And I had them go through this Ho'oponopono process, and, they did it. And the retreat ended, and I had to stay there an extra day. And it just hit me like, do you have some forgiveness to do? And I went in the blaring sun with this little strap around my back. And I realized that I had to forgive the friend who I followed down the ski mountain.
Oh, wow. So, oh my gosh. So it's kind of like you blame them.
I totally blamed her. I was like, why are you? Because this is so funny. We're having such a good conversation. This is a whole nother direction I usually don't go. When I skied with these friends, so my husband and I used to always joke that we turned into like total followers. Like we lost agency whenever we skied with them because they knew the mountain. They were better skiers. And we would just follow them and do shit we had no business doing. Anyway. And so we were a couple, two couples. Maybe all your listeners can relate to this. And my friend's husband was always saying to his wife, like, don't push people. Okay. Like, don't push people. Right. And so on this day that we were skiing, it was the girls only. The husbands were not skiing. And so my friend was like, you can do this. Come on.
The friend you followed.
The friend I followed. And so in my mind, I was like, this is, it's like her fault. Like her husband told her not to do this kind of stuff, that she's super selfish. And, she battles narcissism. She was raised by narcissists. Like we're super good friends. Yeah. But unconsciously, I was blaming her. I had lost my dad about 9 months before this. There was a whole incident with my brother and the will and a bunch of family stuff. And I realized I wasn't forgiving him. Like I had all this anger toward him. And I did this. So I did this forgiveness thing. I like hobbled through this labyrinth. I was bawling my eyes out. And I was okay. Like nothing happened overnight, but my husband and I were testing out this RV idea. So from this place in Utah, we had rented a little, like a Sprinter van, because we thought van life would be cool. And we were going to go on a 1 week trip in Utah and Arizona, see the Grand Canyon, whatever. And I was going to do the trip at the limit that I could do it. And we went to Zion National Park. And there's this famous hike there called Angel's Landing. And I really wanted to do it. And my husband's like, you cannot do this hike. I was like, I woke up in the morning and I was like, something feels different. And he was like,
you mean after your back and everything?
Yeah. He was like, don't push it. Like you feel good. Like you don't have pain today. Like, and I was like, I don't know, something's different. So I put that thing on my back and I started walking and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, the pain is gone. He's like, what? I'm like, it's just gone. He's like, okay. And I said, let's just keep going. And we walked a little further and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, babe, the pain is gone. And I made it to the top.
What?
Yeah, I made it to the top. And from that day on, Cassandra, that pain left my body.
Marni, wait. Do you believe when you are literally in your heart, you let go and you forgave, that released that pain? You think?
Yeah, I released. I forgave my friend, my brother, and myself. And and I did that ritual, that Ho'oponopono forgiveness ritual. And I believe that I was holding on to all of that somatically in my body. And when I literally let go and forgave, like something shifted. And when I talk to clients, I always tell them like, and this is really a big part of the book, is like the problem you think you have isn't really the problem. I thought my problems were the problems I described before. It really was, I was afraid of change. I thought the problem was some physical thing and these doctors were jerks and,
Right.
I needed to find the right cure. But the real problem was that I was holding on to anger and resentment. So the problem you think you have might not be the problem that you really have. And when you actually find that and heal it, then things kind of start to open up.
Wow, that is powerful. That's powerful because I know I have listeners that are thinking like, you know what? There's some people that I need to forgive, even myself. So this to me is a rude awakening because they always say how powerful forgiveness is, and unforgiveness is a cancer, how it just spreads and can certainly impact your body. Thanks so much for sharing that. So after that, is that when you all decided to take a year trip in the RV with the cats?
Yeah. So we did this little experiment in the Spinner van, and we loved it. And so part of the process that I do is you do what I call an experiment, and you assess it, like what worked, what didn't work, what are you really testing for, and then you make adjustments. And so my husband and I were like, that was amazing, but like, there's no way in hell we're living in this small space long term. Like it would not work, right? Like to work and live and the cats. And so then we did another experiment for 6 weeks. We rented a RV that was a little bit bigger. It was like 36 foot. And I was then testing like some very specific things. Can I work, which is the internet work so that I can carry on with my business? Can I still exercise and do my workouts and eat healthfully? Do my husband and I like get along? Does this bring us closer or do we argue? Like there were a lot of different things. And this in the 4th week of the 6th week, I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm literally having the time of my life. Let's do it. Let's sell the house. Let's do this. Let's make the commitment. I'm ready. And it was terrifying, but
I know, I can tell.
But I knew because I had gone through the life design process and I had done these experiments and I had tested these certain things, that I just knew it was the time. And so we sold the house, sold most of our stuff, put some stuff in storage, went to an RV show, bought an RV, and set out on this adventure.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to say the Institute Living Courageously came from all of this.
Yeah, that's a great question. So before that, actually, I've been working with a business consultant, and my old business was very limited in that I was only helping people in their dating life. Like that was my forward-facing brand. I was a dating coach. But I had all these clients that were staying with me for years and years, and they were building their dream lives. And I was talking to this consultant, and he asked me a really great question. And he said, "What's the soul of your business?" And I was like, the soul of my business is helping women fall in love with themselves and then living a life that's beyond their wildest dreams.
Ooh.
And he's like, and how do they do that?
Right.
And I said, well, they have to be courageous. And he's like, well, that's really what your business is. And that's how the Institute for Living Courageously was formed.
Oh my goodness. I like that. What's the soul of your business? Wow. I love that. So the fall, the selling of the home, the healing, all of that was like your truth-seeking journey.
Yes.
I mean, that got to that truth of who you really were. So, because a lot of us identify ourselves with the work we do, and that's not who we are.
Right.
But, right. And then when the work is gone, then who are we? It reminds me of a professional football player, professional in sport. And when they're done, it's like, now what?
That is so great. What's real? This really resonated with me when I heard it. So I love sports. I love football in particularly, but I was watching a documentary about these college students at Michigan that were wanting to be professional football players. And there was this one kid, and he'd go to class and he'd sit in the back row and he'd fall asleep. And so the university had a tutor for him or an academic support. And she was like, dude, I told you, like, why are you sitting in the back row? Like, you need to focus. And he goes, well, I can fall asleep in the back row because I can lean my head back.
Oh, okay.
And she said, I don't remember his name, but she said, what does the NFL really stand for? And he goes, not for long. And she goes, you're right. What do you want to do after the NFL? And he's like, I want to be a consultant. And she was like, then you need to sit your ass in the front row. And I think that is like a metaphor for life, right? You could take the easy way. You could sit in the back row. You can like, be like, yeah, I want to, do this thing, and then just kind of fall asleep.
Right.
Right. Or you can be like, wait, no, this is really what I want to do. I need to show up. I need to sit in the front row. I need to pay attention because life is not for long.
Exactly.
Life is not for long. So it's a really powerful message about like how we want to look at our life.
Ready to design your dream life? Join Cassandra Crawley Mayo's Create and Design Your Best Life workshop. Break free from self-doubt and obstacles and step into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Click the link in the description to register now. Don't wait. Spaces are limited. Start living your best life today.
Oh, I love that. Ooh, not for long. I don't think I've ever heard of that. But you know what? I want to start using that.
Right? Because it's true. I'm playing my first year of fantasy football, Cassandra.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And I've loved football and I watch football. For those of you who don't like football, I promise stay with me. There's a lesson.
I like football.
I didn't know. So I just watch my teams. I like my teams. Yay, go team, watch Super Bowl, whatever. So now that I have this whole this team that I was managing, I did not realize how often these guys get injured, like really injured, and they're out and they're in and they're out and they're in. And it takes a lot of tenacity and really commitment to the long term, the way they don't give up when they get hurt and when they get out. And I've learned a lot about my own resiliency and what happens in the face of challenge when the universe makes it look like you're not meant to do this thing. And how do you show up? Right. And they show up, they go out and they play like they're going to win every single week.
That's right.
And I really think that that's an important message, because when you want to change, when you have something that you want to do, often the universe will test you, and how are you going to show up? Because just because, you got a high ankle sprain this week, that doesn't mean 6 weeks from now, you might not be able to play. And so do you want to like sit there and be like, why is this happening to me? Or do you want to do the work so that when the moment comes, you're ready? Or the guys who are the second or third string that practice every day, even though they don't know if they're going to play. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of a game, they're in.
That's right. Exactly. Great analogies. You're this analogy queen.
I am. My secret talent.
I am loving this. So in the RV for a year.
Yes.
A lot happened, I can tell.
Yes.
You had some revelations. And as a result of that, it sounds like you evolved even more in that. And I like to hear, because one of the things you talked about on your life, on your terms, like living courageously on your terms. And I say that too, living your best life on your terms. What do you mean by on your terms?
That's such an awesome question. I think that most people don't even know what that means because they're so conditioned with the shoulds of what their life should look like. And a lot of people, if this is you, I'm just going to call you out a little. They kind of get attached to being in that victim mentality where they don't have to decide. Like, I can't anyway. It would never happen. You don't know my situation. You don't, they argue for their limitations. And I say, can I swear on your podcast?
Yeah, go ahead.
I say bullshit. Like, what do you get out of not being empowered and having agency over what you want? Because you have to know what you want to go get it. And I
Right.
think a lot of ladies out there don't really think about what their terms are because they just believe that they can't have it. And underneath that is the belief they don't deserve it, or they don't, or they're afraid to fail, or they're afraid to succeed, or whatever it is. So I think on your terms means something different for every person. And it's really based on what I call your soul map. Like, what is it that you love? Like, how do you love to carry it out best? What are the conditions in which you thrive? And what are the core motivations that make you feel like you're in flow?
Yeah.
If it's not resonant at a soul level, it's a hell no. And we don't want to have hell no's in our life, or just figure out how to live with them and wait for one day.
Right. That's right. I read something that says about how you identify and resolve thoughts and behavior patterns that prevent success in personal and professional spaces. How do you identify that in an individuals? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's such a fun question to answer. I think that when you look at a person's life,
Yes.
I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things that clients do is when I first start working with them, they want to show me their calendar.
Oh,
They want to like show me how busy they are.
okay.
Okay. They're like, girl, I can't look, I can't date. I can't work out. I can't cook.
Right.
I can't make time for friends. I don't have any time for fun. I mean, look, Marni, and so it's like, well, let's start looking at the rules that you have that allow your life to be so busy and programmed by other people and obligations and rules that you're literally waiting for your life to start till some other situation outside your control changes, right?
Exactly.
And so just from that one exercise, we can
Yeah.
uncover so many limiting beliefs. I had a client, I've been telling this story a lot because it's just mind blowing, who told me she's a single mom, an executive, very high level, 2 teenage daughters, no dad in the picture, telling me that she has to wake up at 3 a.m. to do the laundry.
Oh,
That's the only time she has time to do it.
hi. Oh,
And I was like, okay, well, what? And she told me why. Well, I work really hard. So to be a good mom, I need to like volunteer and I need to be a good mom. Well, what is a good mom to you? Well, you volunteer to sew the costumes for the play that my kids are in. You offer to bake the cookies. No, they can't be from the store. You offer to drive, You do all these things, and at work, you just have to say yes because I'm on the chopping block every day.
Oh,
When I look at her life at the beginning and then what happened after starting to break through these and start to let go of them, the salient point your listeners can take from this is that she finally got to this idea that I matter. My needs are as important as other people's needs. And so we could still be a good mom and go to the play and support you and cheer, but I don't need to always be the one to make the costumes, even if I'm really good at it. I can go to the store and get cookies. I can tell my boss, like, you know what? I'm going to miss something really important for my kids. So I'm going to have to leave early for this conference. My client, like at the end of our time working together, not only did she set boundaries at work, but she got offered a massive promotion. She healed the relationship with her kids. She started to make friends. She lost like 60 pounds. She got ready and got excited about starting to date. She healed the relationship with her adult siblings and her parents because she was also like, I'm the only caretaker. Like my siblings are irresponsible. I have to take care of my parents. There's so much possibility when you remember that you matter.
Yeah, Marni, that was really good because, I always ask my clients, I'm like, so where did that come from that you had to do this? You had to do the clothes at 3, you had to make the costumes, you had to bake the cookies. Where does that come from? And once they figure out, it's like first of all, you made her aware that now listen to this. You have to do this, this, this. So where did that come from? And a lot of the stuff can come from our childhood. This is the things we believe we should do. We should do that. We should that. Well, can you change the narrative? Why don't we change the narrative? And that's something that you had her do. And I kudos to you, because her life has transformed just based on what you're sharing.
Yeah. And it makes her parents were alcoholics. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
she's been being the responsible one since she was like 12 years old.
Yes. She was in charge of everything. She had to take care of everything. Wow. What a breakthrough for her. Wow. Now, you talked about, I can't wait to get to the rabbi question, but
Okay.
one of the things you talked about is, how does one know if it's the right or wrong thing to do?
Love that. So one of the things that I believe is, and I talked about this earlier, is that our soul is our unique guide, our GPS, our navigational system for what is resonant with who we really are. And it will tell us what is dissonant. And I think there's a couple of things. One of us we don't listen. We're not aware there's a line of connection. So we have to actually understand there's a line of connection, learn how to access that connection, and then start understanding what that feels like. And then how do you start following it? And once you understand what that resonance is like, it becomes easier to do what I call holographic decision making, which is, yes, there's intellectual decisions, right, that we have to make, right? So there's like, I need clarity, I need facts, I need data, right? And then there's an emotional piece that we need to look at, like, what are my feelings around this, making sure that I'm coming from my adult self and not my wounded self. And then there's this spiritual component, like, is this resonant? Like, what is my intuition? What is this, in terms of aligning really with who I am in the world, so that it feels like ease, flow, and grace. And when you have this holographic decision-making system in place, then you're able to really discern what is a hell yes. And I learned this from a gentleman named Greg McEwen, who wrote this book, Essentialism. And he says, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no.
That's good. That's good. That reminds me of a movie that I saw, and I can't even remember the name of it, but Maya Angelou was in the movie, and this young lady was trying to figure out whether she should marry this guy, right? And she says, well, I tell you this, if you have to think about it, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it should be a hell yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that. I love that. I'm saying, girl, you are something else.
Thanks, Cassandra. I think you're just a great interviewer. You're a great podcast host.
Wow. Now I can't wait to talk about the 7 questions.
Okay.
The rabbi. Now, what we didn't say, doing your year in the RV, would you say, I would say, but would you say that's one form of living courageously?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And it's not just in the living in the RV. It was changing my life completely.
Okay. Good. Because I want to stay with that topic we had. Now the questions. Imagine being asked from the gates of heaven to determine whether one has lived a meaningful life. What are those questions?
Okay. So there's 7 of them. They're in my book. They're literally listed on the gave it away. The publisher gave it away. They're on like the back cover. They're on if you go to Amazon, you'll see the questions. But what I want to talk about is, I always have, like, in every podcast, there's like a question that feels really resonant. And so the one that was on my mind this morning, and I really do. Sometimes I wake up, I don't know about you, but sometimes I wake up and I'm like, this isn't working. Why is this happening? What should I do about that? And I forget. I'm like, wait a minute. That's the old way of thinking about what makes a meaningful life. Pivot. Right. So the question in my mind this morning is, were you hopeful? And that's one of the questions. Were you hopeful? And it's asked in the form of, did you count your blessings? And I think that a lot of people understand gratitude at a basic level. They're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be grateful. But what I invite people to sort of develop the practice of is this idea of appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would say there's 3 levels to gratitude. One is like, I am grateful for this amazing big water bottle. Right? And you can say you're grateful for something, and sometimes you can feel it. That's level 1. Level 2 is appreciation. So if I just ask your listeners to think like, what do you really appreciate in your life? Maybe it's that person who said like, your hair looks amazing today, right? Or appreciate that your boss like gave you an afternoon off because, you had something going on and it was easy to get out of work. Like we get a feeling in our body when we think like, wow, I really appreciated that, when we get quiet.
Yeah.
The 3rd level, which is magical, which I talk about in the study of this question, is did you have wonder? Wonder, I think of it like childlike wonder. If you've ever watched a little kid, or you've gone with a little kid to like Disneyland, or, we're in the holidays, like you watch kids like, build a snowman, right? Or like, whatever it is. And they're just like, wow, that's the coolest thing ever, right? It's like looking at life through a child's eyes.
Yeah.
Because they have wonder and appreciation and gratitude and marvel. And what I invite your listeners and the readers of this book to do is think about, if you had wonder for the most mundane things in your life, how could that change how you feel about your life? Like wonder at like the magic of, like I was looking at the trees, it snowed. And I learned last year that the reason why the leaves fall off the trees is because they literally don't have energy to sustain even one little dangling leaf. And if they had that one dangling leaf, that means when spring comes, they're not going to have as much energy to grow beautiful leaves that we see in the spring and the summer. And I was thinking about that this morning because I was looking at these beautiful leafless aspen trees. And I thought, you could think that those were ugly and it's like, wow, winter grr, and I was like, God, look how beautiful they are. They're just standing proud and tall and naked as hell with no leaves, like ready for it, like receiving the cold and holding on to the weight of the snow, and below the ground, like all this magic is happening, and I just was like, wow, I have wonder at like just the fact that like literally on cue. Like it's a time of the year and winter happens. That's kind of a miracle, right? Even with climate change. And so think of all the things you could think about. Like you drink your cup of coffee. How did that bean land in your house? Like the sheets that you're laying on, like they feel soft, like feeling that and being like, damn, that's pretty amazing. Like I get to feel this sensation. So in my book, one of the questions is, did you count your blessings? Like, are you really focused on in creating and cultivating wonder, childlike wonder? When you do that, like you're like walking through life, if we can remember to do it, just in a state of joy.
Yeah. Now, those questions, like, how did you come up with that? Like, the rabbis imagine that's just your creativity. Like, was it doing
So I'll tell you. So in the Jewish literature, there's this thing called the Talmud, which is like this ancient text, and lots of different rabbinic leaders had questions, and then they would discuss them. Like one of the foundations of Judaism is like conflict and discussing and points of view and opinions. And so there's a whole section in there about like what really makes a meaningful life. And I was my dad had died, as I said, and I was at a Jewish service, and the rabbi gave a sermon about these questions. And I started to think like, my dad was so hard on himself because he grew up in this like very wealthy neighborhood as a kid. And he said all his friends like did so well and he did well, but not at their level. And I think to some extent, he always felt like he didn't achieve enough. And I was like, that's, as he would say, such a crock of shit. Like he was such an amazing, loved person. And it was like more than enough. Thought, well, wait, no, I'm just thinking about my dad. Am I leading a meaningful life? And that was in the moment with that accident. That's where I was like, I need to pivot. Like, how am I really going to decide this? And so I found out about these questions and I really started to study them. And then in my book, I was like, I need to universalize these. I need to modernize these. I need to really create a framework so that people can choose like what is on your terms and start to have a framework to start to anchor to define that for themselves.
Wow. That's amazing, because one of my pivotal moments was the story I always tell us about a hospice nurse who made a decision that she was going to interview individuals that were transitioning and to find out what their regrets were.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah. And there were 5 regrets, but the 2 that really resonate, the other 3 were like, wish I didn't work so hard, spend more time with family, travel. But the other 2 was like, I wish I could have been more true to myself. And the second one was, I wish I were happier. And I was like, wow, that is so deep to me. And that's when I'm like, oh my goodness. So I started thinking and, am I happy? Well, what does that look like? Because I don't think at times we even know unless we're asked. As you indicated, all we do is go through life. When you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, some of us, then you're supposed to get married, supposed to have kids, supposed to get a house, And who says that? I mean, where did that come from? So I love that because I just couldn't wait, because for me, I'm not afraid to die. My fear is, am I going to live?
Yes. I love that. I love the way I'm with you on that. I never thought about it like that, but that is true, right? Like I want to live as well, as full as I can. And I think one thing that you said was something like about how this is like a fundamental thing. And I realized like the word fun is in that. And I think for a lot of ladies, they're so busy striving and worrying and focusing on what's not working, as we all do, that they forget to have fun. And when they show me that calendar, fun is like the last thing on the list.
Exactly.
Fun and play.
Right. That's right. Dr. Seuss says fun is good.
Fun is good. My adult kids came for the holiday and it snowed like 30 inches or something. And my husband made a sledding thing in the backyard. And my kids grew up in California, so in Arizona. So like these kids never played in the snow before. And they were like, I want to go sledding. And they played for 2 days, literally in the snow. And I went down there and we were all like, and we all were talking about how, and they're in their mid to late 20s. And they were like, damn, I'm not playing enough. And that was in their 20s. So imagine all of us in our 50s, like our 40s, our 60s. We have to play. We have to program in time for play.
Exactly. And the kids, that was a wonder for them. They were loving it.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun. The videos are epic.
Yes. Yeah. Now, Marni, is your book, I thought I saw somewhere that it was going to be done in 2025. Is it published already?
So it's available for pre-order now. So you can get it on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Target, Walmart, like everywhere. And it will be released. So you'll get to actually get your copy in your hands February 5th. There's also an Audible version that I recorded, which was really fun and interesting to read my book aloud. So that's available as well. And I really recommend that you get it.
I am. I'm going to get it. And I know many of my listeners are going to get it, because it's time for us, those who are not, to live courageously. Now, there's one other thing that I know my listeners would love to get. That phenomenal quiz that you have.
Oh my gosh.
The personality type quiz. I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't wait to take it. And I want to say, what do you think I was? But we don't have a lot of time.
I bet you're a creator. Were you a creator?
I was.
Yep.
Good job.
I was like, this girl's a creator for sure.
I sure was, and I wanted my listeners to take that quiz. I think it's fascinating. I was so, I even had to think about some of the questions. I'm like, no, don't think about it. Just go ahead and do it. And from that, you create a soul map from that quiz.
Yeah, so it starts to show you like where your soul map, what it looks like, and the parts that you need to expand. And based on, so it's kind of like where you're thinking, where you're feeling, what's holding you back, where you're not living into your soul map. And so it's very insightful and also gives you direction. What's interesting is over 1,000 people have taken that quiz so far. And when I get the amazing opportunity to engage with people about it, and I say, how long have you been a settler? How long have you been a wanderer? Or how long have you been a dreamer? Those are some of the categories. People are like, for as long as I can remember. And all that's telling me is that if you don't take action to figure out how to find your courage, the data is kind of showing like time or changing circumstances or a different economy or a different age, or when your parents are, when your kids are, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's just, you're going to keep doing it. So it's kind of a wake up call.
Wow. So I'm going to call your quiz a call to action.
It is a call to action.
Yeah, I'm going to call that a call to action. And that is on your website.
It's on, so you can find it at marnibattista.com, or you can go to decodeyourdestinyquiz.com, which is easy to remember. Decodeyourdestinyquiz.com.
Wow, great. I know they're going to look at that because I couldn't wait to do the quiz.
It's and then if you do the quiz, and then if you want to have a conversation with me, kind of looking at your soul map and kind of walking through that, I'm happy to do that too. And there's an opportunity to do it because I love to collect my data.
Yeah, I can tell you a data girl.
I just, I always tell my kids, my husband, my clients, data, not drama.
All right.
What's the data showing you?
Exactly. So I'd like for you to share, based on my listeners and what my podcast is about, any other words of wisdom that you can provide them to get them unstuck. Let's make that move. Let's just do it, because I believe there's some listeners here that, based on our conversation, they're going like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take that quiz and I'm going to get out of my way. And I'm going to start living more courageously. Because
I love that.
If Marni could follow somebody, fall down, hurt herself, and how resilient she was to, like, you know what? This is not my life. I want to live a victorious, courageous life. So what will you have to tell my listeners so they can do the same?
Okay. This is what I've noticed. And this speaks specifically to the title of your book. I think that I'm going to tell your listeners, I'm going to ask a question and then I'm going to tell you. The question is, are you more committed to your bullshit, or are you more committed to your vision? Because I hear a lot of people arguing for their way, arguing for their limitations, arguing for what sucks, and finding consensus building, getting a tribe of people who agree with you that it sucks. And notice your words. Like if you're like, here's another example, let me tell you the quality of your words, the quality of the conversations you're having. If you are arguing for your way, that's in your way, you're never going to get there. So it's time to stop arguing for your dreams instead of your limitations.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Marni, I tell you, we hear about nuggets, like you just spread so many nuggets, but to me, I call it diamonds. I mean, you just raised the bar.
Oh, thank you.
Have sprinkles of all of this, and I'm just so thankful to have had you on my show. And like I tell my listeners, I know that this show has blessed you and you know somebody else that it will bless. And I encourage you to forward it. I also encourage you, number one, it's going to be on all podcast platforms. And if you like this show, I'm pretty certain you're going to like the other one. So I ask that you subscribe and like. And Marni, again, bye for now. Blessings to you, my listeners. Bye for now, and God bless you. And Marni, oh my gosh, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Mwah to all of you. Love.
You.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying our empowering conversations, make sure you don't miss out on future episodes of Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. Stay in the loop with all the latest episodes. Join our mailing list over at CassandraCrawley.com. And before you go, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe now. Until next time, let's get ready to live your best life.